Ah man, this game is getting real crazy. I don't even know how we're gonna make it out of it.
You can't keep getting away with it!
What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This took a lot longer than I was expecting, but I finally finished Cold Steel 3, and man, what a wild ride it was. Despite this now being the 8th Trails game I've played and beaten, CS3 felt like yet another big step up from the previous game, and honestly I thoroughly enjoyed all the time I spent. From a pure gameplay and fun factor, CS3 is definitely high up on the list as one of my favorite Trails games so far, but I'm sure you're wondering what I think about the game as a whole. Well, that's what I'm here to talk about, so enough with the intro, let's get straight to it. First up, I want to talk about the overall vibe of the game. Right off the bat, the graphical jump from CS2 to 3 was just insane to see firsthand. Like, yeah, I've seen small bits and pieces of the series from CS3 and beyond, but after spending so much time with CS1 and 2 and growing to really love how those games looked and felt, seeing the graphical jump damn near brought a tear to my eye. There were a lot of points during my playthrough where I stopped what I was doing and just took a moment to admire the scenery. So many places in CS3 just look so damn pretty. St. Arc, Parm, Raquel, and especially Ortis. That part of the game was definitely my favorite. I spent so much time just looking around the city and talking to NPCs while handling side quests. On top of that, I grew to really love the branch campus pretty quickly. I was slightly bummed out that I wasn't at the main branch at first, since I did spend an entire game there, and then another game fighting to get it back. But if I'm being honest, at a certain point, I started to like Leaves and the branch campus a bit more than Trista and Thor's. Don't get me wrong, it's really slight. Trista was absolutely magical. I'd be super hyped if I got to go back there in one of the future games. But I'm not gonna lie and say I didn't start to love Leaves just as much over time. Overall, I feel like the best way I could describe the game is refined. Everything just kind of feels smooth and sleek, you know? The character art, the menus, the battle UI, it just feels like the perfected form of everything Trails has built up over the previous games, which admittedly feels weird to say since there's still so many more games after this. Seriously, I can't even imagine how things are gonna improve from here on out. And speaking of the battle UI, it was a pretty unexpected switch up. I had gotten so used to just going through menus during fights. Just having most things be accessible from a button press almost felt unnatural, at the start anyways. It did take a bit, but after a while I started getting the hang of it, and now I kinda appreciate the change to assigning things to a simple button press. I felt like it really improved the overall flow of combat, especially later down the line when I was more comfortable with fighting and had a decent team setup, aka using Yuna and Kurt to just annihilate most of my enemies, and then having Muse there for arts and stuff. Once I had the team set up, most of the fights were super manageable. Most of the time. Those Brave orders came in clutch so many times. Sledgehammer, Raging Fire, Divine Song, Crazy Hunt, Art Celebration, like god damn. I don't know how I would have survived some of the fights without them. But even then, on occasion, I would get washed from either being unprepared or just bad planning. But despite that, I do feel like CS3 was the first time in the series where I could finish a boss fight and go, hold on, that almost felt too easy. Even the Divine Knight battle started to become a breeze after a while. Like, the boss fights where I genuinely struggled or died are few and far between. And to be honest, most of the time when I died, it was either from me being dumb, a surprise solo fight, or that damn Aurelia and Victor boss fight. Like, after a few times I figured out the method, but I got washed so hard. But normally, most boss fights went pretty smoothly. Almost shockingly so. I think the first time I went, hold on, that's it, was during the Campanella and McBurn boss fight. I thought for sure I was gonna start getting one shot or something crazy, but I got through without much issue. There is a chance that I'm just, you know, starting to get comfortable with the mechanics of Trails, which is a good thing. I'm 8 games deep after all. But if that's the case, I might think about switching up to hard mode whenever I start CS4, whenever I get around to that. Man, I sure do hope I don't end up regretting that decision. One more thing revolving around the general feel of the game is something I actually mentioned during my CS1 review, that weird, unexplainable sense of nostalgia. Like I've played this game or something similar during my younger years. Wait guys, hold on, I'm not old, I swear to god, I'm only 19. Look, unlike when I said that about CS1, there might be a genuine reason for that nostalgic feeling I got. On one hand, the visuals, the music, and things like that make CS3 feel like a game I would have adored when I was like 11 or 12. But on the other hand, I technically have played this game before. Let me explain. I can't even begin to remember how old I was at the time, but I have this weird, really faint but still distinct memory of playing the demo for Cold Steel 3 on the Switch. Like, I couldn't even tell you what led up to it, how I even found out about it, or what made me download the demo. But I can vividly remember myself going through that very first section of Cold Steel 3 on my Switch. So that weird memory, along with the other aspects about the game that younger me would have loved, turned into this strong sense of nostalgia that hung around during my playthrough. Man, I can't even imagine how different I'd be if I had gotten into Trails before East. The last thing I want to go over before we get into any story related stuff is the music. As per usual with Trails games and Falcom in general, all the music was peak. I think Brave Steel might be one of my favorite normal battle themes in the series now. It's genuinely that good. I feel like that song is the perfect example of Cold Steel 3's vibe being sleek and refined. When that song started playing during my first proper fight, it almost felt like the song itself was trying to send a message. You're 8 games deep, you know the drill by now, or something like that, you know? It's a fresh, new battle theme for a new game and experience, yet it carries the hint of familiarity all the same, since I'm still in Erebonia after all. Aside from that, so many tracks from this game have been stuck in my head ever since I first heard them. Like, for one, I've seen so many people say that Step Ahead was one of Singa's best songs, but I was just like, I don't know man, his East 9 run was kinda generational. I'm sure it'll be good, but yeah, I understand it now. That song low-key got some emotional response out of me every time it played. There's so many tracks I could talk about, man, but there's one in particular I just have to mention. Radiant Heimdall. The first time I heard this track was during one of the bonding events with Usis, and I tell you, I genuinely, unironically, had to put the controller down and just listen to the song. I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've been playing Trails and went, wait, isn't this an East song? This track sounds like it came straight out of East 9, man. I was so caught off guard. It sounded so familiar, I paused the game right after that scene just to go find what East song I was thinking of. It was in profile on Belfry, by the way. Genuinely one of the best East Town themes of all time. I really do love that song. And little did I know that song was basically a sequel to Radiant Heimdall. So it's no wonder why I fell in love with the song on the first listen. And of course, I can't review a Trails game without mentioning the opening. I'm starting to think Falcom just can't miss with these. There hasn't been a single one I don't love, and this one is no different. Alright, I've gone over the general vibe, the gameplay, and the music. So next up is the story. Just a heads up, there are gonna be spoilers from here on out. So if you haven't beaten the game yet, you might want to skip ahead to the next section. But with that out the way, let's get to it. The first story related thing I actually want to talk about is the game's pacing. Now, I'm not some kind of expert on this stuff, far from it, but I genuinely feel like Cold Steel 3's pacing is immaculate. Probably some of the best in the series so far. I might have mentioned something similar during my CS1 review, but the field studies are handled so well. On one hand, they're lengthy and eventful enough to where it never feels like being sent off on a field study is annoying, but on the other hand, they are long enough to where that final day of the field study has me starting to miss the branch campus. And that happened practically every chapter. There's two exceptions though. The obvious one being the final chapter, but I'll get to that later. The other one was, unsurprisingly if you know me, chapter 2. This is probably my favorite chapter in the game for a whole bunch of reasons. The obvious one being that I got to go back to Crossbell after all this time. Honestly, I was really hyped. Crossbow is absolutely my favorite place in Trails by a long shot. I genuinely cherished every waking moment I spent playing Zero in Azure, and before long I started feeling like I've lived in Crossbow my whole damn life. So getting to return had me really excited. However, once I got there, something didn't feel right. I still had all my excitement as I was on the highway, and even more so as I actually set foot in the city again. But a really odd feeling started to linger the longer I roamed around. It's a bit hard to describe, but I could just feel that something was a bit off. After not seeing Crossbow for so long, I expected to be all happy, maybe even nostalgic of my memories with the SSS. But that wasn't the case at all. Things felt way more somber than I thought they would. The sky wasn't nearly as bright as I remember it being the last time I was there. Even the city itself didn't have that reunion or welcome home kind of feeling. And after taking a moment to think as I roamed around, it finally hit me. It's supposed to feel like this. Looking back, I don't know how it happened, but for a fleeting moment in all my excitement at returning, I genuinely forgot that Erebonia had taken over Crossbell. Things are different. The residents aren't all happy with the changes. Hell, I was playing as someone who came from the country that took over the city I loved. I was conflicted for nearly the entire field study. I hated the fact that Erebonia took over. I hated the fact I was here as someone from Erebonia. And later on in that chapter, once I found out the situation Lloyd and the others were in, seeing how Yuna's feelings and reaction damn near mimicked my own, that hatred only started to grow. However, at the height of my conflicted emotions and just not knowing what exactly I'm supposed to feel or who I'm supposed to be rooting for.
Yuna, the members of the Special Support Section are, without a doubt, heroes. I can't help but think each one of them are truly great people. Him included. But are you okay with simply looking up to them forever? Right now, they're trapped, unable to protect their home. So who's going to be the one to protect Crossbell in their absence?
Honestly, I felt like that speech affected me just as much as it did Yuna, as weird as that may sound. Chapter 2 is definitely one of the highlights of the game in my eyes, which feels crazy to say considering how much stuff happened over the course of the game. All the Divine Knight battles, the Ouroboros fights, Reen randomly seeing this lady who totally isn't just Alwyn from Zwei 2 in a different font, and don't even get me started on running into Azure Siegfried. Honestly, who the hell is falling for this? But somehow, a dead guy just walking around wasn't even the craziest part of the game. Now, I mean this in the most endearing way possible, but that final chapter made me want to throw my monitor out of the window. Genuinely, too much stuff happened in that last stretch of the game. Just thinking back on it nearly a week later still has me in shock. Ash, who's actually a survivor of Hamel, just like you know who, while being controlled by this weird Erebonian curse, just walks up and empties a clip in the Emperor, which they use as a catalyst to start a war with Calvary. I just casually find out the reason nobody could contact Gaius is because he ended up joining the Grails Rider. The professor guy I've been running into time and time again actually turns out to be Alyssa's father, and he's evil on top of that. Angelica, Tova, Olivier, Victor, and Milliam are just gone. The curse spread over all of Erebonia, making even more Pleroma grass spawn, and after all that, the game has the nerve to just cut to black. They cannot keep getting away with this. First Sky FC, then Azure, which admittedly wasn't as bad, then CS1, and then they have the nerve to hit me with it again in the same arc. I could not believe that's where they decided to end the game, man. I'm so lucky Sky the First is out already, because under any other circumstance, I would be playing CS4 as we speak. And yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say. Sorry if the ending seemed a bit abrupt. If I kept rambling, this video would have been way too long. But either way, despite how it ended, Cold Steel 3 was genuinely amazing on every front. The graphical upgrades, the combat improvements, the music, the characters, some of which I liked more than others, and of course the story. It all came together to form something really special, and honestly it's gonna be a struggle to not immediately jump into CS4. But unfortunately for me, Sky the First is out right now, so that kinda takes priority. But best believe, my experience with CS3 is gonna remain in my mind for a real long time. Anyways, that's all for me. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to stay posted for future uploads. Alright, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.